It's news time. Lilia Nalyagaka is working for you. 7 people were injured in Kherson as a result of Russian shelling. According to the regional prosecutor's office, 6 civilians were hurt by artillery attacks. Another man was injured by an FPV drone. The occupiers also attacked from the air. There is information about damage to private and apartment buildings, a hospital building, and vehicles. In Pavlohrad, Dnipropetrovsk region, a man was killed in a drone attack. During the day, 3 more people were injured. Among them is an 8-year-old girl. This was reported by the authorities, who also clarified that fires were raging in the city. An apartment building, cars, and a private business were damaged. There are also victims in the Nikopol district. 1 person was hospitalized. Damage was recorded in Nikopol, as well as in the Pokrovska, Mirivska, and Marganetska communities. There, a sports school, 5 private houses, garages, and an outbuilding were hit. Several cars and a power line were also affected. In Zaporizhzhia, power supply was fully restored after the night attack. The occupiers launched more than 750 strikes on the city. During the enemy shelling, 3 people were injured. This was reported on our broadcast by the spokesperson of the Zaporizhzhia Regional Military Administration, Oleksandr Kovalenko. According to him, dozens of private houses were damaged.
As a result of today's shelling, 3 people were injured. An 87-year-old woman with a fracture is in the hospital. And also an elderly man, 91 years old. The 44-year-old woman, they received first emergency medical aid on the spot and are now receiving outpatient treatment. The number of destroyed homes is increasing. At this time, it is known that 65 houses in the private sector have been affected. Let me remind you, Zaporizhzhia was shelled with multiple rocket launch systems.
Russian soldiers are disguising themselves in Ukrainian Armed Forces uniforms to get into Pokrovsk. This was reported to us by the Chief of Staff of the National Guard's Artillery Reconnaissance Division, Ihor Yeremenko. According to him, the occupiers are not stopping their pressure in order to capture the city. But the defense forces are holding their ground firmly and even launching counterattacks to improve their tactics. The political and logistical situation.
The armed forces of the Russian Federation are handling this for the Federation. They infiltrate the cities in civilian clothing, sometimes even in field uniforms of the armed forces. They disguise themselves and entrench in residential areas. The situation is further complicated by the fact that there are still civilians remaining in the city. This complicates and makes more difficult the process of clearing the city itself, but the defense forces, first of all, are not allowing this to happen easily or without resistance. The invading army to encircle Pavlohrad by capturing Pokrovsk. That's why the deep state map will be changing constantly, I believe, in the coming days. The Russians are storming in large numbers right now.
Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region is targeted by the enemy to be lost, but all their attacks are being repelled by Ukrainian defenders. This was reported to us by Viktor Trohubov, the head of the communications department in the Joint Forces grouping. According to him, the situation is difficult, but the armed forces of Ukraine recently dealt a crushing blow to the occupiers. And they have been forced to change their offensive tactics.
Nevertheless, Russian plans, despite focusing on the city center, are currently facing setbacks. Moreover, there is reason for cautious optimism that even in the northern areas where they tried to concentrate their forces, things are now getting tough for them. They were hit with several precise and heavy strikes, as a result of which their offensive there has now slowed down. Now, instead of trying to break through directly from the northern districts to the center as before, they are mostly trying to bypass the city everywhere. The situation is difficult, undoubtedly difficult, but nevertheless, the easy walk they were hoping for is not happening there.
67 Russian drones were destroyed by our defenders last night over Ukraine, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Fighters from the Mobile Fire Group of the 638th Separate Anti-Aircraft Machine Gun Battalion also took part in shooting down the enemy UAVs. Right now, the defenders are raising money for interceptor drones, so they can eliminate even more Russian drones in the Ukrainian sky. The QR code is on the screen. Join in so that we can sleep more peacefully.
In our area of responsibility, on our sectors, there is a constant attack by enemy Shaheds in small groups of 2 to 3 enemy unmanned aerial vehicles. which are constantly trying both to conduct reconnaissance and to strike critical infrastructure objects in our area of responsibility. We are raising funds for additional equipment as well as for unmanned systems. For the interceptors of our unit, a new unit has recently been created in our division, the drone-to-drone interceptors, who have already proven themselves to be highly effective in other units. This is an effective means for destroying Shaheds and Girans.
Ukraine has strengthened its air defense. This was reported by President Volodymyr Zelensky. He did not provide any details, but wrote that it concerns Patriots. And he thanked German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. We have been preparing. The strengthening of air defense and the agreements that have now been reached have been fulfilled. This is a quote from the president. According to him, negotiations on further strengthening air defense are ongoing both at the government level and directly with the manufacturers of the necessary systems. A man and a woman were killed and at least 6 people were injured. There was a shooting on the Greek island of Crete. This happened as an act of revenge, as a result of hostility or between 2 families. Before this, unknown individuals planted a homemade explosive device in an unfinished house belonging to the Skodaris family. The owners themselves identified the culprits and opened fire on them. Those who started the shooting were arrested. Among the dead are a man from one family and a woman from the other, who had come to attend her father's memorial service. To the island, police officers and the head of the Greek FBI arrived. 10 people were injured and hospitalized after a knife attack on a train in Cambridgeshire, United Kingdom. 2 of them remain in serious condition with life-threatening injuries. Several others have already been discharged. The attack occurred in the evening on a train traveling from Doncaster to London. Police have not specified what caused the bloody incident, but they have already reported detaining 2 suspects. A witness who was in the carriage at the moment of the stabbing says that the passengers were in a real panic. Another witness told journalists that the police used a taser on a man on the platform. Prime Minister Keir Starmer called the incident horrific and urged people to follow the recommendations of local authorities. Counter-terrorism services were involved in the investigation, and the possibility of a terrorist attack has already been ruled out. Train services have been partially suspended.
The 2 men were apprehended 8 minutes after the call about the incident was received. They remain in custody as of this morning. I can report that one is a 32-year-old black British citizen and the other is a 35-year-old man, also a British citizen, of Caribbean descent. Both were arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Both were born in the United Kingdom.
The French prosecutor has charged 2 more suspects in the case of the jewel theft from the Louvre, worth $102 million. They are a 37-year-old man and a 38-year-old woman who were detained in Paris. Both have been kept in custody. Thus, the total number of official suspects has risen to 4. According to the Paris prosecutor's office, the thieves were not professionals. Let me remind you, the robbery took place 2 weeks ago. At that time, 2 men in hoodies reached the 2nd floor within a few minutes using a freight elevator. They smashed the jewelry display cases and escaped on scooters. Among the stolen items were the diadem Korolev Maria Emilia and Hortensia. Also among them were the Smaragdo diadem of Empress Maria Luisa and a tiara that once belonged to Empress Eugenie. At least 23 people died in a fire at a supermarket in the city of Hermosillo, Mexico. Most of them died from carbon monoxide poisoning, according to Reuters. Among the victims are children. Dozens more were injured. The tragedy occurred during the celebration of the Day of the Dead. This is one of the most important holidays in Mexico. The cause of the fire is unknown. The governor has ordered an investigation to determine it. The preliminary version is a short circuit. However, the police are also considering the possibility of arson.
We have no reason to believe that the fire was intentional. We are not ruling out any version, wherever the investigation may lead. However, at this moment, we want to state very responsibly and categorically that we have no evidence whatsoever that would even suggest arson.